right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. And today is the last day of Voting Rights Month. And our special guest today is Maya Buchanan, the lead on our voter protection team. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you. It's great. Glad to have me.
Yes, it's great to have you here. You are the crowning jewel in our month-long celebration of voting rights because you're incredibly important. Your work is incredibly important. Can you tell us what are the voter protection issues facing Americans abroad at this moment?
Right. So basically, we're helping to make sure that our votes as overseas Americans can get to our election offices in time to be counted and help resolve any issues that would stop them from being counted after they've arrived. So the issues, this is an issue, voter protection issues for Americans overseas at the best of times are, pretty critical, but now during the pandemic, causing major postal disruptions, and what the Trump administration is doing to the USPS, it's been a real struggle for people to navigate to be able to find to send their ballots. So the types of issues that that voters are facing now and during the primaries are varied. It can be general things like confusion and misinformation, problems registering, requesting ballots, having been purged from the voter rolls, problems receiving your ballot or accessing voter information. This is a recurrent theme at the moment where states are geo-blocking their voter information pages so that they're not accessible to some foreign countries. And this seems quite random, but this is a cybersecurity measure. So if you go to your state voter information pages, you can't get through to find the information you need. This was a big problem during the midterms with Pennsylvania, so that people were not able to download their ballots from the web portals. So we're seeing a lot of that. There's an issue called the Nixie issue, which we call the Nixie issue. It arose during the midterms in 2018, where hundreds of postal mailed ballots and other voting materials were erroneously returned to voters abroad by the USPS from international service centers in the US, principally in New York. We've been notified by someone recently that this has happened to them in their primary. So we are in the process of sending out a voter protection survey to all GA members to identify issues they experienced during their state primaries, and we'll include this Nixie issue in it. And we call it a Nixie because there's a yellow label that says Nixie on it. So we're trying to raise awareness of that, and we're working with the USPS from the international service centers in the US to try and resolve this. The other thing is rejected ballots. People are getting, the main reason for having rejected ballots, this is in the primary, is because ballots are arriving too late, or sometimes signature mismatches. There are COVID-specific issues, like suspended or delayed postal service in the country where they live. There are many countries with no international postal service at all to the US, and then there are countries with mail delivery, which is just very slow. With fewer flights, post is often going by ship rather than plane, and the ship just waits to kind of fill up before it goes. So sometimes it's taking months to arrive. There's limited or no access to the diplomatic pouch for delivery for some people. It depends on the country, it depends on the embassy and what rules they've set up for themselves around COVID. And then there's the Trump factor, which is his attack on the USPS, which means that after the ballots of overseas voters finally wind their way into the US, they have to enter the US postal system with all the delays happening there. So those are the kinds of issues that people are facing. And it's very changeable, so you're trying to keep up with any new developments. I think it's important to add here that for many voters, those who can use email, fax, or web portal to return their ballots, their voting process may be no different than in any other election, even despite COVID and the problems with the USPS. I just want to say that to allay, to put people's fears at rest. And the process for registering and requesting and receiving your ballot is the same as it's always been. It's incredibly easy to do that through Vote from Abroad, by using the FPCA, which is the Federal Postcard Application. And what is different for people is that we're asking people who vote in states that require postal mail ballots to use a FWAB, which is a federal write-in absentee ballot, as your backup. This is an absentee ballot. Again, you can find this on votefromabroad.org, and it just gives a few extra weeks for your ballot to journey through the postal systems. And we're just asking everyone to do everything early and to make a voting plan. So those are some of the kind of issues that people are facing.
As far as sending ballots back and using the FWAB, I just had a chat online with some members in Egypt, and their issue was that this voter voted in New York, where you can only send it back by mail, and that UPS and other services like this are incredibly expensive from the Middle East or African countries. What can they do? Should they send a FWAB and then send a normal thing, or should they just send it just once with the UPS? Or
you don't have to. I think people like to send your original ballot when it arrives because you can vote down ballot. It's easy to see all the ballot initiatives. If money if the expense of sending in your ballot is prohibitive and you only want to do it once, send the FWAB. That is your backup ballot, which you're going to have a head start to send that. It still has to wind its way through the postal service. But, if the original one never arrived, they'd use that. So, it means that you can vote. So if you don't want to send both of them, just do the FWAB and then don't do the other one. It is expensive, and it's a real shame that this is where we are, and that we have, this is how people are being impacted. We knew it was going to be a tricky election anyway, but then there's COVID on top. So, with the post, it seems like there are some countries opening up. We had at one point 100, a couple of months ago, we had over 100 countries which had no postal service, and that went down to 80. It is very changeable. So it's kind of, a watch this space, but because we're asking everyone to use the FWAB now, just do whatever is going to be easiest to make sure your ballot gets there. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely going to be a little bit difficult for people this year. I faxed my ballot back. Normally I would have just put it in the mail, and it got there fine. I vote in Florida. It got there fine. So if you have access, if you live in a state that can fax or email, definitely, take advantage. What's the voter protection team doing to help resolve or combat these issues?
So we work with the DNC voter protection team on both identifying purge lists and identifying trends, and then figuring out best next steps and coordinating with people who can help us solve these issues. The DNC also reaches out to us when they hear of abroad issues through their voter help hotline. For example, they provided us with one of our cases in the recent issue. We were able to resolve with the embassies declaring voting to be a non-essential activity. And
What?
conversely, when we have an issue with a specific state, they will help us find the best person in that state to work on in resolving the problem. Many state parties have their own voter protection directors now. So we're working on getting to know these directors and coordinating on sharing information together. Yeah, so that's one area, and that's Julia's very involved in that. And my role as voter protection chair is to liaise closely with Julia and the Get Out the Vote teams, working to resolve individual voter issues, work to help develop voter protection campaigns and strategy to increase member awareness on voting issues, help to organise activism to elevate our campaign successes, sharing DNC and state Dem Party voter protection updates via Julia to membership and vice versa, and coordinating volunteers. And so it's a kind of multi-pronged approach that we're taking. Roughly, the work falls into kind of three main areas. It's information and outreach to DA members on voter protection issues. We especially focus on states returning ballots by mail, countries without international postal service, battleground states, and members who've had their ballots rejected or have been purged from the voter rolls. Working on our main campaign for Americans voting from abroad, which is email and web portal ballot returns, which is what we're advocating for. We have an ongoing campaign focusing on Zoom actions where members contact their governors in ballot return postal mail states only to share their voter experience. We're also making calls to our members of Congress in support of the USPS. We co-hosted 2 of these events, one in June and one in July. And now these are being rolled out into different country committees and chapters. The next one is being hosted in the Netherlands by a voter protection superstar, Mary Meehan. That's on Sunday the 6th. And I do have a link for this. I'm going to include that. So if anyone wants to log in and join that, they can do. And let's see, I'll put that in here. And then we're working on a project to review state lists on the Vote from Abroad state pages to tackle the geo-blocking issue, which I just mentioned. So we're looking for volunteers in different country locations to help in this work. Again, if this is of interest, do get in touch with us, particularly if you are in the Americas, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. We have people working in various locations in Europe, but not so much in the other regions. So that's where basically you go to your state page and you want to track your ballot, and you can't track your ballot because the page is blocked. So we're working to resolve that. We're setting up to work with members who've been purged from the voter rolls or who have had their ballots rejected in the primary so that they can get their issues resolved ahead of the presidential election. So that's our next project being launched. We work on legal and voter protection issues with state party protection teams. We're developing a big team on Intercom now, so we're anticipating an influx of people contacting after September 19, when the ballots should be arriving with us. And so it's just kind of, it's about trying to anticipate issues and stay one step ahead of them and to resolve issues as they come up. And just, yeah, so like now we're asking people to use the FWAB. That was because after ages, we just realized that it wasn't going to work any other way. And hopefully some states will change that they allow email returns, but basically people just need to be able to vote. So so that's one initiative. Yeah, so it's a kind of multi-pronged approach. And we've got good volunteers who are all coming forward and working really hard. So
yeah, that's great. You know, that geo blocking, yeah, that's my husband votes in Pennsylvania, and he cannot, without a VPN, he cannot access the website for voting.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, I know it's like a security measure, but there has to be some way to, for people who are not in the United States to be able to access this
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. And this is why it is good for states to hear from us, because I think, if you stay quiet, people don't necessarily know that you're a constituent that needs to be heard and have issues resolved. And they're just kind of, they need to know it's prevalent and it's affecting people. And actually, if they are, if they're in election, if they're actually, up for re-election themselves, it really helps to kind of show willing that, they want to support our overseas Americans trying to vote. So I'm all for contacting and explaining the issue and contacting even your elections official, your member that you spoke to in Egypt. I mean, yes, he should use a courier service, but also he should contact his elections office and say, do you have any advice or anything else that you would recommend for me in this situation?
To let
maybe
them
they
know
can't
that
help,
there's a problem. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I will definitely do that. We have a suggestion from someone watching on Facebook to try Opera browser. It has a built-in VPN function in it, so that would be one way that you can access these to kind of bypass.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that we're doing. We have a campaign going out. I mean, basically on our blog page, we're just sharing information, preparing information actually now, which is going to be posted, and we'll be doing some social media postings about that, like how to, we're directly working with states, but how to, in the meantime, to use Opera. So thank you for that comment, because a few people have mentioned that and had real success. I think it doesn't work everywhere, but
it does work for the most part. We have another person, Janet Glenn Denning. She wrote, I just wrote to, I guess that's New Mexico. Sorry. I'm like, I don't know what state that is. New Mexico elections about this very issue. I couldn't access their portal from Canada. Wow. Not even from Canada. That is amazing.
Yeah. And I'm actually a New Mexico voter, and I noticed that myself. Although you can email your ballot there if you're in New Mexico, but still you want to see all your voter information. I noticed that as well. So what's happening with that is we've actually, in this Review Stateless project, we've got volunteers in different country committee locations who are actually checking all the resources, feedbacking this information to us via feedback and then we're doing a big slide deck presentation, which Julia is taking to the DNC and their voter protection teams to help us navigate and get all of these links fixed, and to, so we get their backing and support when we go to the States. And then sometimes the links are just broken, so we're not dealing with that as well. Sometimes maybe the page has been moved to a new page, and so you can still find the information somewhere, but it's just not where it had been, and so the link doesn't direct to the same place. So that's a whole thing that we're working with. But yeah, it's really important, and we want to be able to track our ballots and know that they've arrived, and we can't do it if we can't access the web pages. So
yeah, that's true. I had to fax my ballot, and this is nerve-wracking, but I did it anyway. I faxed my ballot, which I haven't used a fax machine in I don't know how many years, and then I put a message on the fax cover sheet that said, could you email me and let me know you got it? And they did. And what I don't understand is, why can't I just email my ballot?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, how many people have fax machines these days? I mean, not many.
I mean, I'm just super lucky that there's one in my printer. It came in my printer, and I used it, I don't know, I used it about 7 or 8 years ago to send something to another US government office. It wasn't voting, it was for something else, and they wouldn't accept an email. So I sent them a fax, and now for voting, I'm going to vote by fax this time for sure. You know, luckily I can do it so simply in my own home. Not everybody can.
Yeah. Well, so the thing about faxing though too is that I know that this happened during the midterms, is that sometimes people, the fax machines wouldn't be on, they would be running out of paper because they're just not used to receiving faxes. They weren't looking out for it. But I think Florida, I mean, particularly this year, has been really on the case. The voter protection teams in Florida have been on the case, making sure that people are monitoring the fax machines, they're ready and standby. So that's really helpful. And actually Julia has been going to contacting all the vote by fax states to say, can you help make sure that this is going to work, that the system isn't going to fall down at your end, So
yeah, because that could easily happen. A lot of people are not old enough to remember what it's like to use a fax machine, but they run out of paper, and then they just don't answer anymore. They just don't pick up, and unless somebody fixes it, it doesn't. Luckily, it's hopefully there are people standing by. I mean, it seems that way, so don't worry. Everything is good so far.
Everything is good, but it is worth always contacting to say, I'm voting by fax, I'm doing it today, I want to make sure that someone standing by, is it all on, is it all operational, and then just say, tracking to see if your ballot is received. And that's useful for anyone, no matter how you've returned your ballot.
That's right. That's right. Always ask them to verify that they've received it, especially in Florida. You can go up on their portal. Oddly theirs isn't blocked. I can always get in. I don't know what that means, but yeah, you can go and see if your vote has arrived and if it was counted and all that on the website, which is super convenient. But you can also ask them to send you an email just to say that they received it. We have another comment from someone in there, from Arna Desher. She says that you can use Zero Fax, and that there are several online fax services. Yeah, which there are, but the thing is about some of those online fax services is that you need a scanner also.
Right.
You need to be able to scan the document in, which I know there's some things you can do with your phone. I don't know, are you guys working to put together like a list of these type of things that people can use?
I mean, I think, for example, with California, I think that's an email to fax solution. I think the different states that allow fax have slightly different, not all of them are the same. And I think the best thing to do is to go to your state pages on Vote from Abroad and just look at what, you'll get your contact details, and to contact them if you have any queries, or if you have any concerns or worries, contact us. If you've had an issue or something that is, someone said, oh, but what happens with the paper size? The paper might not be the right size because A4 paper in Europe is not the same as the, printed paper that you get in the States, and is part of your ballot going to be cut off? So anything like that, do contact us. But also always, as a first point of call, go to your elections office and find out, what do they need? What are the issues that you're going to have to be concerned with? And then if you don't have any joy, or if you still have concerns, please contact us. I think that's the best, there aren't that many states that do fax really. So yeah, I mean, they might be, so yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, but this year, okay, Florida voters, please use the fax. Do not try to mail it. Do not try to mail it. Come on.
I mean, fax isn't ideal in some cases, but I mean, the option of possibly not being able to vote at all is just not even worth considering. So just, do whatever I mean, there might be some inconveniences, and I love your story about having to go and find a piece, to actually make sure the fax machine works and this, that, and the other. And the good thing about you had a voting plan, so that's good.
Yes, I had a plan, and it worked for the most part. I just didn't think of all the parts. I mean, my vote was counted for our primary, our state primary, but yeah, I was going to use a fax. And so, I'm all set. I'm all high speed. Like, I've got all my stuff on lock, except for one thing, that I didn't have a cable to connect my fax to my telephone system. And luckily, I found this out during business hours where I could go out and get something. So I would really suggest to everyone, whatever your plan is, make a dry run to try to figure out if it works. Don't wait till the last minute, because you may not have all the components to do what you want to do.
Absolutely.
I've got to do that myself for my husband and my children's votes in Pennsylvania. So that they can, I decided I was going to send them by UPS, but I'd have to find the UPS around here. I don't know where it is, but I'll find it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But a voting plan is one of the things that I did want to talk about, and I shared that slide. We can talk.
You want me to show the slide?
Well, yeah. I mean, in terms of, how members can help with this voter protection work, really, it's so it's vote. We always want people to vote, have a voting plan, act early, help other people's vote. But these are some of the key messages for voters, and persist more is crucial. Yes. So have a voting plan. It will be unique to you because everyone is in a different situation, they're in a different country, they vote in a different state, a different county. Like your voting plan for your member in Egypt will be different to somebody else. So be very realistic about what your circumstances are, and try and have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Plan A for anyone who is voting in a vote in a mail, postal mail return ballot state only is use the FWAB. That should be your A. And then if there's an issue, perhaps there's the embassy pouch that you can use. There are different options available, and some will be more desirable than others. Mm-hmm. So have a voting plan, make a voting plan, act early, double check if you're registered to vote. If you voted in the primary, you will be, but if you haven't, or and you've sent your ballot in, don't just assume that it's fine. If you've had a response back to say, yes, we've accepted your request, then that should be fine. If not, register and request your ballot. Go to Vote from Abroad. Doing it from Vote from Abroad is so much better than going to your state pages. Firstly, it is completely geared towards overseas voters, and there's none of this complication about ringing them, contacting your elections office, where they don't realize that you're a voter from abroad and they think you're voting from in-state as an absentee ballot, and they send you the wrong information and you don't know to ask the right, you're federally protected. You should get your ballot 45 days beforehand. So I really recommend using Vote from Abroad. Set your calendar for a date for September 19. This is when you should be receiving your ballot. Get it, look for it in your inbox. If you haven't asked for it to be sent by email, send in another FPCA form and request by email. You get your ballot on September 19. You really want to print it, fill it out, send it back by email, like immediately, because the level of chaos and confusion going on in the States with the elections office and the postal mail within the States is so high right now that even if you think you're going to have an easy time because you can use a web portal or an email ballot return option, don't wait, because the chances of mistakes happening and it getting caught up in a level of chaos that is going to be unprecedented is much higher. It is likely to, we think that the election might be contested. We think that there might be recounts, and we just want to get everything in as early as possible so that it doesn't drag on.
Yes.
After returning your ballot, check that it's been received and counted. Now, if you voted in the primary, I really would recommend that you check to see if your ballot has been counted, because if there is any issue about it not being counted, you then have time to resolve it for the presidential. And you can do this by going to the Vote from Abroad pages. In some states, there's a track your ballot at the bottom of the state pages. And in some states, you have to contact your elections office directly. And you're asking whether your ballot's been received. You're asking whether it's been accepted, and which is another word for counted. So if you say, has my ballot been accepted? You just want to know that. We've had cases where I had a Georgia couple, a man and his wife, and he posted both of their ballots off together at the same time, different envelopes. His ballot was not counted and hers was. No one knows why, but it happens. And so, don't just sit back and assume. Check it out, because that gives you extra time. Also, it's really useful for us to know, and I'm going to include the link for this form in a second, any voter issues that you have, including whether your ballot's been counted, and even in the presidential. I know people kind of think, oh, it's a moot point, why check if it's counted afterwards? It's not, because it really is helpful for us in terms of tracking information, looking for affidavits, looking if there are court cases happening, finding the data that can support that. I mean, that's a whole new post-election thing and effort that it is really helpful to have that kind of information. So helpful tips, learn the voting laws in your state and follow them. You can just go to the state pages on Vote from Abroad, spend a few minutes looking, to know exactly what's going on. And it is much better for you to know than for you to contact your elections office. And in some cases, they might not know as much as you do, because they're not dealing with voters from abroad that often. And they might say something that isn't exactly true. And I'm not saying that that's voter suppression, like by design or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a lot of misinformation from both sides, voters and election officials. So learn the laws for yourself. If you need to contact your elections office, it is really helpful to have an email that says exactly what the issue is, the date, the time. If you need to call them, ask for the name, write down who you've called. All of this information really is helpful, certainly in a post-election kind of fact-finding mission, but it also is really useful for just helping to hold your elections officials accountable for the information they give you. It somehow focuses minds if you kind of suddenly are saying, can I have your name and what's your, then it just, in their minds, I think, oh, let me make sure I'm giving them the right information. It's just that kind of you being responsible for getting what you need. And then if you have any concerns, do contact us, because we really want to help try and resolve issues before it gets to, oh my God, the election's in a week and this hasn't worked out. And, the sooner you notice anything that you're concerned about, please contact us. So, yeah. And the voter hotline at Vote from Abroad is really useful. Yeah, so anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. If you have some kind of issues, contact your local election office, contact the voter protection team. This is so important this year that everybody's vote counts. So follow the instructions that they give you when they send you your ballot. if they want you to sign a little affidavit, because in Florida they do, you have to sign an affidavit. I know in some states you have to have someone like co-sign it or something like that. I don't know what, there's a few states like that need a second person to sign that you actually filled out your ballot, which seems superfluous, but you
Is
know.
that the voter curing? Is that when you have to cure your vote afterwards?
No, it's before, like you have to, somebody has, there's a few states that you have to have somebody, you sign and say that you're eligible to vote, and then someone kind of like a notary, but it doesn't have to be notarized.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know
Just
what
to
you mean.
say,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
they filled
yeah,
out their own ballot, without
yeah,
help, which seems a little extreme, but okay, follow the
yeah,
rules. It's
yeah,
important that every vote counts. So no matter how ridiculous it seems what they're asking you, please do it.
yeah.
It's very important this
And
year.
and
Um,
that is a tip from Stacey Abrams as well, is just know the laws in your state, know the rules in your state so that you are one step ahead and you are not getting caught out.
yeah,
So you can rail against the laws and you can try and push against them and you can actually work to resolve them, true. But meanwhile, while they're in, your vote is important. Just do what you need to do to get your vote in.
that's right. That's right. We just need everybody's vote to count. This election is so important, and the overseas vote is essential. We are definitely the margin of victory, and we're going to push a lot of people over the edge as far as wins on the Democratic side, and that's what we want to do. We want to
Yeah,
win. Like, no
exactly.
joke. We can't,
Exactly.
make your plan on how you're going to vote. Ballot day is September 19th, and then be ready to vote it on the weekend, and be
Yeah.
ready to send it back. Be ready to
Yeah.
send it back on Monday morning or sometime that week, as soon as you can get, you know, get out. I mean, of course, some of us are still kind of half staying at home, so we have to make a plan on when we're going to go out, but send it back in September.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Send it back. And obviously, if you vote in a state that only lets you vote by ballot return by mail only, use your FWAB now.
Yes.
Just buy yourself that extra bit of time. So, and I just put a link to the survey in the chat box. So if anybody so could fill that out, that would be really great and helpful.
Yeah. I added it to the Facebook Live chat, and yeah, definitely do whatever you can. Help your friends if they need it. Yeah, just vote, please.
And you can do this with your family and friends, your networks at home as well. If you have on Facebook or whatever, just ask people, how many of you have a voting plan? Just start the conversation. Start it with your family. If you do a weekly Zoom call with your family, let everyone discuss what their voting plan is going to be. It can be, make it a thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Especially also people in the States. What's their plan? Because
Yeah.
things might be a little bit difficult and uncomfortable there also.
Yeah.
Depending on where you live, it could be difficult. So yeah, everybody make a plan. It's really important that you know how you're going to do this, and don't wait till the last minute. Go to votefromabroad.org and request your absentee ballot if you haven't done so. Ask for it to be delivered by email. It can be delivered by email in all 50 states. So
Yeah.
yes, don't let them mail it to you, because it'll never arrive on time.
And if it does, you won't get it back on time.
Yeah, this is true. Well, I have a couple of other questions for you. With all the chaos going on in the midst of this election, do you have tips for staying motivated and focused?
Yeah, I mean, this is not something that I normally talk about in a voter protection chat, but I think, this election is not happening in a vacuum. So to just think, oh, we're just going to do these practical steps and it's all going to be fine. That's true. We want to do all of that, but it is so overwhelming at the moment with everything that's going on. And especially if you're dealing with your situation, you might be helping a partner who votes in a different state. You might be supporting friends and family at home, trying to, as we were just saying, what's your voting plan? How are you going to do it? You're getting out the vote. And, I really feel, obviously this is the election of a lifetime. There's incredible turmoil and worry. But, I really think Trump he does it on purpose to kind of keep chaos and confusion and distraction whipped up. And so we can't let that sway us. So I would say just turn off the news for a bit. Mm-hmm. Having your mobile pinging with news alerts all day long is actually not going to change anything, but it will increase your heart rate and anxiety and help bring on feelings of overwhelm. Regularly taking pause to practice self-care, whatever that means for you, is great. It's really important. But I also think that focusing on the achievable things that you can do to make a difference keeps us grounded in a purposeful way. So, really volunteering with the Get Out the Vote teams, the voter protection teams, doing some phone banking, any kind of, working with your networks back home, like we've just said. These are all achievable tasks that you can just do. And you'll know that, okay, you're working towards something which actually is going to make a difference. So none of us want to wake up on November 4 and wish we'd done more. So that's the point. So don't let yourself get overwhelmed and swayed. I also think paying attention to down ballot races is really important, and it helps us focus our minds on state races, which really impact people's lives directly. It also allows us to move away from Trump and towards thinking about state and local policy issues that you'd like to see enacted in your state for your family back home. And it's crucial to have democratic wins in state races for redistricting purposes. So next year, after the census, we have our once every 10-year opportunity to redraw the congressional and state maps, and we don't want Republicans to be in charge of this process. So we want independent redistricting commissions to draw fair maps. If your state doesn't allow you to vote down ballot, you still can support these races financially. You can promote candidates within your networks. I think doing that and just having a vision beyond the presidential is really helpful. The other thing that I find very inspiring actually is to go to Ballotpedia and explore the ballot initiatives listed there for the November elections. You can go there and check it out to see if there are any in your voting state that you want to support and you want to raise awareness of with your networks back home. Right now, there's a ballot initiative to set up a redistricting commission in Virginia. There's another big initiative in Missouri on redistricting, lobbying, and campaign finance. There's another one allowing voting restoration for people on parole in California. So what I really love about ballot initiatives is they feel like real grassroots democracy in action, knowing that people have been working hard, door knocking, collecting signatures, to bring change in their local communities. To finally get to a point where it's on the ballot for a vote is really empowering for them. And I think it's something that is easy for us to miss when we get our ballots. We haven't, especially if you're living abroad, you don't necessarily know what the issues are, what the ballot is about, or the initiative rather is about. So explore on Ballotpedia, and that will just give a real insight into what else is going on and how you can protect our democracy. So yeah, those are some of the things that are motivating. And I think it's just a combination of recognizing what's at stake, but also what we can be hopeful for and looking forward. So that's kind of my tips for myself. So I just kind of share that out.
Yes, voting is self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Once you fill out that ballot and get it sent back, it'll be like a big weight is off your shoulder. Like,
Yeah.
whew, I have done what I need to do to change the world to a more positive place, because we absolutely 100% have to get rid of Donald Trump.
Yeah. But don't just stop with voting for yourself. Help
Oh,
other people vote, because there are people who just do need that extra bit of support. And that always, I'm always struck by that when I'm doing phone banking is, people, they don't necessarily know the laws, they're getting a bit confused, they're feeling like they're getting the runaround. And it is very easy for that margin to have the shavings off of like, is that person going to actually get their ballot in on time? Are they going to lose momentum by the time they work it out? Is it going to be too late? So
yeah,
there's always
right.
that. And
Other
yeah,
people need help too. If you have a scanner that maybe you could let someone use, or ask your friends, do they need help scanning their ballots? If you have a fax, I've let my chapter know that people in our area, if they want to fax their ballots back, they can do it at my house. Like, you know,
great,
you
because
know,
most people don't have a fax
yeah,
machine.
I know. I am just super lucky, really. When I bought this, we bought a printer, I don't know, a long, like it was really like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was like, oh, they're still putting a fax in this thing,
Yeah.
and will I ever need it? And lo and behold, I do. do. So yeah, help out other people vote. Make sure that we all vote. And if you haven't already done so, maybe text a few of your friends and find out, like, have they requested their ballots? And if they haven't, tell them to go to votefromabroad.org. And you know, like
Yeah.
really, it's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final remarks, Maya?
I don't think so, unless there's any other questions. I mean, I think following your voting plan and not getting discouraged really is the key, and just doing everything early, like way earlier than you would ever normally consider doing. And even, as I was saying, even if you think, you're going to be all right voting because your state allows you to do email attachment, think of the atmosphere that your ballot is going into. And, you want to have extra time. You want the election officials to have extra time to process your ballot so that they can actually be free to process all the other ones that are just going to be piling
Popping in,
in.
yeah.
And just so just do yourself a favor and just be like, okay, phew, I've done what I need to do, and get it out of the way.
Yeah, definitely make your plan, send it back in September, and that way everything can be calmer. Once
Yeah.
really, you don't have to worry, am I getting it in at the last moment? Because that's stressy if you have
Yeah.
to wait
Yeah.
if you wait till the last moment. It's stressy for everyone. So send it in September. And if you have any issues, uh, contact voter protection at democratsabroad.org.
Yeah. And
Uh,
please fill out the survey, because that is really helpful for us, which
yes.
there's a link in the chat
Yes,
box.
I put the survey out on the video post so that people can get it. Please fill out the survey, and everybody, please vote. Votefromabroad.org. If you're living overseas, if you're happen to seeing this and you're from the United States, iwillvote.com, where you can register to vote. Um, Thank you so much for joining me, Maya, and
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, and thank you for inviting me.
not a problem. And we will see you guys sometime in the future. Don't know exactly when I'll be back, but will definitely be back soon. So everybody, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I